and I had done it with my husband. Unintentionally, I felt distant from him. I felt I had negative thoughts towards him, and I had come to that point where it had just created a problem. Please subscribe and turn on your notifications to stay tuned to the latest updates at the Powder Room Talk.
I've been saying this a lot in many of my interviews. At the end of the day, life is all about choices, and it's your responsibility to make the right choice for yourself, you know, and oftentimes as human beings, I realize that it's easier to dwell on the sorrows. It's easier to stay bitter. But you need to remind yourself, how badly do you want to be happy? How badly do you want to witness progress in your life? How badly do you want to feel at peace with yourself? And I'm a big believer that if you want something badly enough and actually mean it and it comes from the heart, that's when you're able to forgive. And that's when you're able to, as Viola said, not necessarily forget what they did or say it's okay, but just like dropping a mic, just dropping them, leaving in the past and move forward.
Because if you don't draw the line, sometimes a lot of people, they do not know how to draw the line, and being naively being told that you have to forgive and forget, it will keep coming back to you.
But it's like a recurring behavior.
It's like because
we're taught that way. Like, you know, when you're a child and someone and something happens, like you play with your sibling and your sibling does something to you and then you fight, and then at the end the parents ask the other sibling, apologize to sibling A, right? And then you get the apology, and then they want you to say it's okay, right? I mean, so we're taught to say it's okay, when actually what we should do is, like, someone apologizes to you and you say,
that's not okay.
Thank you for apologizing. Thank you. I'll receive the apology. It doesn't mean you have to say, it's okay, like, because it's two different things. But since we're brought up, we're supposed to say it's okay, right? Or that's what we think we have to do. And that already sets our mind up to think that when we say, you know, like that when apology is coming, we're supposed to, like, just let it all go. As if it didn't happen.
Because it's dangerous, you know. It happens to me. So I had to forgive this person because I think he hurt me so much in a way. But I didn't keep the clean lines or the clear line or the boundaries. So because we work in the same place. So, you know, you have to interact. But then I keep letting that person into my life. And the hurt will always be there. You know, it keeps recurring back. It keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. Only until, it doesn't mean I didn't forgive him. I forgave him. But because I didn't have, it still poisons me because you see that person every day, you met that person, you let that person still be friends with you, hanging out with you, and it's hard. Okay, and until up to the point when I say, okay, it's not good for me, I have to make the boundaries. I don't need to be friends with you anymore. I mean, you know, just acquaintance. If I say hi, yes, necessarily, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be friends with you, going to call you, talk to you every day. It's not going to happen.
You know, I really love this quote by Paul Scanlon. He says, you don't have to build a relationship with everyone you forgive.
That's
Just
true.
because you're at peace doesn't mean they're not still toxic.
And
they
can still be toxic, right?
You can forgive a person for what they did once. It doesn't mean you allow them back into their life to do it over and over and over again. Why would you do that? That would be stupid, right? So I wonder, like, what do you think are, like, really good boundaries that are still loving, you know, loving towards yourself and loving towards others? How do you set boundaries with people that hurt you?
For me, I think one of my key apology language is to actually have your change behavior, to actually observe a change behavior in the person. Because there's very often, just like we say, I forgive you, people say, oh, I'm sorry, or, you know, very casually. And there's actually no real change in their behavior. So for me, like, forgiveness is from my choice to forgive you for what you have done, right? So like, I've experienced several times people would slander me and say, put words in my mouth and say like, I did this to them or I did that and I hurt them. And it's totally preposterous. Like, that's not the truth. It's their own, ignorant, their own reality, right? And so I had to, of course, the first time when I experienced it, it was very hard to forgive because it was that, what's up with that? Like where did that come from? Why did you decide out of nowhere to put that verdict upon me? That especially I didn't actually do that to you. But when I actually forgave them, I would take a step back, and I would have to cultivate my wisdom in that observation of, is this a right thing to once again allow this person to come back into my life? If I don't observe that change behavior, it's like you said, every time you open that door, let them in, and you don't set up that healthy boundaries, that drama is going to recur again and again and again. And because they haven't matured, they perhaps need to first forgive themselves or actually have some introspection and be like, oh, actually, I need to fix this about myself, or I need to improve and then realign my values or my behavior so that I don't hurt other people anymore. And up until I see that, I clearly am like, okay, arm's length. I would still respect you, be polite with you. I'm not like childish. If I see you in the mall and I run the other way, no, I see you, I say hi. But are you going to be like my inner circle? No, I'm sorry.
But also realize that even though you've forgiven, it's also not your responsibility to help them realize that they're wrong. They
that's
need
a
to
good
go
point.
through their own
Process
growth.
it.
And for me personally, there are a few people who I believe have wronged me throughout their life. That's throughout my life, and I've forgiven them. But for some of them who haven't realized that they've done me wrong, I just, I wish them the best, but I'm no longer their friend. And if I see them, of course, I'll be polite. But at the same time, it's not my responsibility to make them realize. If they don't feel like they've done anything wrong, let it be, but don't let them continue to affect you. Don't let their perception affect how you feel about yourself or how you view yourself, because they no longer matter. If they're not helping you build yourself up, don't let their opinions or their existence affect you.
Yeah.
It's like the word we use,
How do you
right?
do
Like,
that,
is it
though?
toxic?
Yeah, how do
It's like
you-
toxic fumes, right?
Yeah.
You stay away.
So you unfriend them on Facebook, or
Now on Instagram, they have that setting that you can mute them.
Mute
Just
them.
mute them. You don't have to unfollow them. Just mute them.
Oh, that's nice.
There is.
Those 3 dots up in the right corner.
Honestly,
Click.
once you see less of them and hear less of them, you start feeling like they don't exist. And I mean, this is mean, but that's the approach I take. Like, I just pretend like they don't exist. And if let's say they're still on my social media, as I say, I mute them. And the less I see of them on my feed in my life, I forget they ever
And you
existed.
don't need to feel judged. A lot of people judge you anyway. But you said you forgive me, but why you do not want to talk to me? I say, I don't want to talk to you. I forgive
because
you.
they don't understand.
Yeah, they don't understand.
forgiveness
so
is.
you don't need to feel judged in a way if you just cut some people out of your life just because they're toxic, right?
Yeah, and it's your right to live your life the way you want and associate yourself with the people you want to associate with. So, if someone says, "Oh, I thought you've forgiven me," is for me personally, I could say, "Yes, I've forgiven you," but also respect my choice. And I believe that it is better for us not to be in each other's lives. But I'll always be cordial. I'll always be nice to you when I see you. But just don't expect that you can take any more of my time or my energy.
Until you have gained my trust back, I would say. If someone works hard to gain trust back, I think at some point, and you can see the change in behavior, you can see there is work that they've done on themselves, then I think it actually is possible, right, to have a reconciliation. It depends on the situation, but especially when you're like in a family setting, this is easier said than done, right? Because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
what if your parents say, you should talk to your sister, and you're like, but my sister has physically violated me, right? Like, for example, how are you supposed to, but they're like, oh, you should, your sisters, don't be like that. I mean, I think a lot of people have things like that happening in their house where they're like being forced to get along with someone that has actually violated them in a certain way, maybe verbally or maybe physically. And how are they supposed to draw the line?
Yeah,
right?
you
How do you do
mentioned,
that?
like, how you prioritize, relationship,
Do
right?
you prioritize
Because-
your family unity, or do you prioritize yourself
Yeah,
and
because-
disassociate from them?
Because
Or
not
can
every,
there be
yeah.
can there be real family unity if you
Yeah.
actually have a problem like that and it's just fake family unity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's
how
like not spoken.
Yeah.
Right.
But there are some relationship probably worth to reconcile with. Maybe like I mentioned, family, I do not know. But
Depending
even
on what
depending on
happened,
what
yeah.
happened, yeah. So how do you prioritize that? For me,
Yeah.
for myself, if it's because I'm close with my family, so of course I had a lot of family reconciliation before. Either my brother wronged me, I wronged my brother or my sister,
I think every family
yeah,
has
every
those
family
things,
has those
right?
things,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
because they are important for me, that's why I put my efforts in terms of reconciliation with them, to reconcile with them, because I
Yeah.
know it's important, and
Yeah.
but I need to see they change behavior.
Obviously, as children, I'm sure, well, maybe I'm not sure, but like I personally have had problems with my parents, for example. Don't get me wrong, I love them so much.
Yeah.
We're close. I see them 2 to 3 times a year because they live in Bali.
Yeah.
But of course, there are things in life that we don't always agree upon.
Yeah.
And there have been things in our history that I've tried to forgive and maybe I'm still working on. But, of course, it's not always perfect.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just trying to share how I deal with,
Yeah.
the frustration or anger I've felt towards my own parents, because you can't disown your parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in
I had to go through
Indonesia.
that process too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Indonesia or in Asian cultures, parents are everything. You have to give them your love and respect.
Yeah.
But with me, what I've started to do is, first of all, I try to have a very open conversation with my parents. I'm like, hey, understand that we don't have the same point of view. You need to understand that I have my own life. I love you and respect you. But something that I've told my parents is don't expect me to be your source of happiness. If I am, that's great. But you also need to find your own happiness, because as human beings, we are all responsible for our own happiness.
Yes.
It does not mean that if something bad happens to them, I wouldn't be there for them. I'd take the first flight out.
Yeah.
But what I mean by like finding my own happiness and their own happiness is make sure that even void of my presence or like void of my communication, they can still enjoy life on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own life's course. And not only that, sometimes, mothers can be annoying and constantly text you and like nag you for no reason. And I've just learned to block that out. I tell my mom, if I don't respond to you, it's not because I don't care, it's not because I don't respect you, but just understand that rather than lashing out at you or screaming at you or like having beef,
Yes.
I'd rather ignore you so that when we meet or when we talk, there isn't tension.
Tension.
Yeah,
Yes.
or
I was gonna mention
anger.
that.
That's a boundary, basically. It's
Yeah,
a,
I
it's a
create a
healthy
boundary,
boundary that
yes.
helps you to have a good relationship with your
Yes.
mother,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I think like this is a good lead into something that I'm thinking in my head where we talked about forgiveness and we talked about boundaries, and I think it's also good to talk about a healthy way to approach the journey of forgiveness. Because for me, like your example, I think it was so important that you spoke up, and communicate. Even if it was the little things like, Mom, stop nagging me, like it doesn't mean I don't care about you and all that, but I've got things on my end, and and there are times like when sometimes we think like that person hurt me, maybe that in that person's mind that wasn't happening. Maybe like your case, you're really really busy, and it's not like I don't love you anymore. I'm just unable to attend to you right now, and when we don't communicate those issues or voice them out, we assume like you're
understand.
supposed to read my mind to know exactly why I am angry at you. And I think with a lot of relationships that are not healthy, a lot of the root stems at that, because there is no courage to actually open up and say, look, I think we need to address this issue. I know it's difficult and it actually bothers me. Maybe you don't even realize what you do, even as a small thing, it actually really irks me and it drives me mad. And I notice that I'm now consciously or unconsciously, I'm taking scores of how you're treating me. But then maybe that person doesn't even realize like, oh, wow, actually this behavior of mine really gets on that person's nerve.
And sometimes even after you communicate openly, they still don't think you're in the wrong. But at that point, you just have to understand that they'll never change. It's not on you to make them change,
Yes.
but the way you react to
Yes, the
their
way you react.
behavior
That's very
needs to
good.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And I'm
what you said is like, it really rings a bell in me, because last year there's something I realized that when you forgive a person for those little itsy bitsy things, it might mean you have forgiven, but you still haven't addressed the problem, and so it's still there in the relationship.
Yeah.
And I had done that with my husband unintentionally for probably 2 years. I remember last year I was at a point where it suddenly dawned on me what had happened, because I felt distant from him. I felt I had negative thoughts towards him, and I had come to that point where it had just created a problem, because then it was 2 weeks into the lockdown. And the first week was beautiful, like holidays, and the second week was like, oh my God, how can I get out of his way? You know, like I need my space. Like you have to suddenly deal with stuff that you could avoid before, because when you're not around each other the whole time, you don't actually notice things. But now we had to face it, right? Like we went inside, and I'm like, there's something wrong, right? And it dawned on me that I had not told him a lot of things that I had thought about him, that I had thought about him negatively. I had made assumptions, and I had thought things about him where he did something to me, maybe something small, and I was like, oh, well, it's just a small thing, I let it go.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize is that it was as if I forgive what I thought, right? I forgive, but it still goes on a list. It still goes somewhere, or imagine it as a brick. It's like a little brick, and an invisible brick, and I take this assumption about him and this little offense, and I put it down between us. And then every time something little happens, I'm like, it's too little to talk about it. Yeah, it will just create a drama. Let's just drop it. I can let go. I can forgive this.
Yeah.
I add another brick, and I add another brick, and I had done it for 2 years. Imagine 2 years.
You got a wall.
And I got a wall, and it was invisible, but it was separating us, and I had never addressed it. So it was like an invisible wall. It was feelable. I knew it was there. He knew it was there. He had no idea why it was there, obviously. I was the only one who could actually do something about it, because I knew I had something against him.
Yes.
I had thoughts against him, and it had added up to something that was like separating me from him. And I came to the point where I realized that it took me really forever. I mean, it took me so long. And at that moment I realized that I was like, oh no, now I have to tell him all these things.
It was like it was slowly festering inside of you because you didn't attend to it.
And it was like,
and it built up.
Yeah, and it built up, and it became worse, and all these assumptions together are like a bad picture, right? And it was real for me. But what I had done when I realized that is I had never given him the chance to explain himself, to make up for it, to apologize, to ask forgiveness, right? I had never given him the chance, and he might have done it. He might not have seen the point, but he might at least have done something about it, right? Or he could at least have explained his point of view. Yeah. And I had never given him the chance because I never wanted to address the little things.
Yes.
And so the moment I had to address the whole thing, it was really painful because I knew I was going to hurt him with my words, saying all these things about him that I had felt about him. Yeah. But the moment I finally did, and I let it out, and he took it in, and he was like, wow. He was like, you thought that about me? And I'm like, yeah. And then he started making a case for him. Like he basically said like, but this and this and this, and this is how I feel, and this is what I did, and this is not real. Like this is not the truth, right? And he made a case, and he apologized, and he made it up to me, and it was like poof, it was gone. The invisible wall was really just in my head, and I hadn't given him the chance to tear it down, and until that moment, and the moment I did, that was like, even though I had forgiven him for these things, I still had kept a score in a way that he could do nothing about, and it did create this division. And what could have happened if I would have never addressed it is that it would have gotten to a point where I would think, he's so far away, the wall is so thick, he's so bad, all these things, look how bad he is. it's not worth it anymore. I'll just walk away. And then I would have never to address it. I would have never have to hurt him with my words. I would just let all go and leave. And I think that's what happens with a lot of relationships. We just drop them because we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to address things. We don't want to tell people the hard things, right? But I think it's part of the process. It's not just to forgive, but you still have to address the issues.
And I think like this kinds of confrontation, because they stem from a place of love, unless you don't want the relationship, you don't work on it and you don't talk about it. And I think it is also important for both sides to learn that it is a very practical thing to talk about it, because if you don't also give someone that opportunity to talk about what's festering inside of them, that perhaps you had no idea was hurting that person, that's when it, like that's how things always implode, right?
Yes. But let's play the devil's advocate here. You're lucky that you have a husband who's emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Let's assume.
Kind of, yeah. No, he
But
is.
let's assume you had given him all this list that you've, the list you've created, and he still didn't get it. Like, how do you forgive or move forward then?
Giving the other person a chance.
extent.
And what
I
if that
never gave
person
him the
doesn't take
chance.
the chance?
Well, then it's another thing.
Yeah.
Like if the other person doesn't take the chance, then the case is different. But if you never give the chance, you just always assume the worst about the other person.
Yeah.
You do. And it might not be like that, right?
I think that's where I think like what we were addressing earlier about boundaries is that once you have that confrontation and that discussion, how that person reacts to it is also part and parcel of your decision making of how you're going to react to the circumstances, right? I'm going to forgive and I'm going to let that person in again. And sometimes, as you were saying, you know, with the parents, there was a little point in my life where I had to protect my own sanity with my parents, especially with my mother, because it was very much like, you know, the whole classic Asian parent thing. You know, I am all for a children, you know, loving and being filial back to your parents, but it was getting to a point where it no longer made any sense, and it was overriding, even borderline like that's not even part of our family values. Like, you're being double standard right now, and you're forcing that down my throat and wanting me to accept that decision about a bad circumstances in the family. And technically I am the victim. I don't want to live victimized. Though I when I was mad, like, you know, so infuriated by what was happening in the family, there was a period of time I actually took the poison. I was just so like, okay, there's no point addressing, you know, like you said, you know, EQ, you know, there's a lot of IQ in my family, but EQ sometimes is not really the strongest thing. So, and then I acknowledge that, and I'm like, pointless addressing these things, because they're going to come back and be like, this is the family rule, this is the family law, and there's no vulnerability of conversation happening. And I've noticed I built a wall up because of that. Oh, after I say, you know, I already told you I think this is not right, and we need to address it. And, you know, the approach was, no, I'm brushing all your opinions off. Unity or whatever it is
So
that
do
you're
you think
supposed.
you should have spoken up at the time? Do you still think you need to speak
I
up?
still think there are still words that are left unsaid, and obviously I processed, and the first thing I had to do was internally forgive everyone, including the one causing the great pain in the family.
Yeah.
And in my heart was, I forgive the person who did cause the pain, but I won't have an opportunity to tell that person, but internally that set me free, because I stopped penalizing him for a mistake that maybe you've made. It's been years, you know, and I came to terms with myself that this will be an apology I may never get in my entire life, because this person, but how would this person actually know that one day if he or she's in trouble, they can come to me and I will be there. But being there and allowing you to come in does not mean up until today I'm okay with the thing you never had the courage or strength to apologize for. And I think like sometimes it's that scale of that wisdom and maturity and deciding if you're going to be that bigger person to effect that big change. Because sometimes you said you were experiencing shame, right? When you were because you were the one that caused the mistake.
I caused the mistake.
And sometimes some people need help to, you know,
understand that.
Yeah, they need help to forgive themselves. If
Yeah.
it's not a responsibility, but if you decided that this is something big enough to confront, then maybe we do need to do that. I don't know if that's helpful in answering your question. Like, if that person doesn't have EQ, and after sharing all of this, like, this is how you made me feel, and they don't exactly react the way that you wish they would react, I think it is necessary to slowly unpack, how I should deal with this, but absolutely don't let it fester inside of you,
I
because
think
that would
it
kill
comes
you.
back to the first point when we mentioned that forgiveness is all about liberating yourself.
Yeah.
At a point of life, like JJ mentioned, there would be a lot of people not getting apology they deserve to get.
Yeah.
Some people will never apologize to you because they never realize it. Even if you brought it up, they may still feel, I didn't do anything to you.
Yeah.
And again, at that point, I think don't hold grudge back to you again, because I remember there's a quote mentioned, hurt people,
Hurt people.
hurt people.
Yeah.
Because you will unleash the hurt to other people around you. You become bitter, right?
It's a transfer of poison.
Yeah.
You poison me with your negativity and your wrongdoings, and then I'm bitter, so I poison you back by
that's-
blaming
yeah.
you. And because I'm
Yes.
blaming you, you lash back at
Yeah.
me. It's an exchange of
like-
poison.
And to the other person,
Yeah.
and to the other person.
that's
and,
such a-
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it hurt people,
It's
hurt
true.
people, because that's the truth. And again, always remember that forgiveness is about liberating yourself. So either you get that apology or you're not getting that apology. It matters, but sometimes it doesn't matter for you, because the point is you need to liberate yourself. You may not get that apology until the end of your life.
Yeah.
And remember, people who are in pain usually want to relieve themselves of the poison. That's why they give it to other people. But in the process, it's your choice whether you want to take that poison
Yes.
or let it stop right there.
Yeah.
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 Who's
You
gonna
know,
break
that's
the
a great
cycle,
way.
right?
That's a great
Like,
way
who's
of-
gonna let's stop
Yeah.
it where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it does take a lot of understanding of other people.
It does.
And a bigger empathy
Yeah.
of understanding why people hurt other people. Why did people hurt me? And the more we get there and the more we learn about that, I think the more we're able to, really forgive, like
And-
really let go,
Yeah.
really
and,
unload.
And
yeah.
to sum it up, it's not like I had the whole nation say sorry for making fun of your accent. But what I realized, and this is how I put it into perspective, so many people in the world, in this country, around me, must be going through so much to the point where the only way they could feel joy or relief is by mocking other people. And I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And, now it's up to me to realize that. And I'm not going to get an apology from those
Yes.
people, but let it be, because that's something they have to work on.
Yeah.
That's a growth they have to experience on their own. And all I can do is realize the situation from their standpoint and then continue to move forward in my life and execute, the mission that I have for myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what they think don't matter. They're not, they're not the one feeding me. They're not the one providing me with shelter. Like,
Yes.
I need to make sure that I can just continue to be a positive role model.
Yeah.
And that is not by harboring hate in my heart.
True.
I
I
love
love
how
that.
you put
Yeah.
that in. Oh, that's a really great way to sum it all up. Once again, Cinta, I mean, like, really, thank you for thank you for being so candid with us today, and it's such a rare
Yes.
opportunity, such a joy to have you with us,
Yes,
and,
it really
and to
was.
share so
Yeah.
many tears and stories
Yeah.
together, and have a good girls' time.
And all the best
nice.
for your new YouTube channel and
Yeah.
for your talk show and for your
Book.
book.
Yes.
Yeah. Surat dari Cinta.
Surat dari
It's gonna be a
Cinta.
whole book. No, it's
Yes.
not.
Book.
Oh, but we can follow your Instagram first.
Yes.
At
Surat dari
At
Cinta.
Surat
Maybe I
dari
should write you.
Cinta.
I should share with you my story.
Yeah, you
write in
can.
and share you my story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm very
Bully.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. And I hope through our conversation today, many people will find it within
Yes.
themselves to forgive and
Yes.
also realize that it's a choice in order to, find peace and
Yeah,
happiness
true.
within.
Yes, and we really wish this for all of our audience, that you can find your biggest potential, you can live out that calling that you have in your heart. You can grow bigger than yourself and don't just circle around the bitterness that might have happened in the past, and you can move forward.
We want to send you a lot of love and light. Till next time at the Powder Room.
Bye.
Bye.
It's like